Hi, and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, August 20th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining me today. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. You can find me online on Instagram and Etsy at Noble Character Crafts. And you can get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to all of the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting, crocheting, and cross stitch to share with you all. I am hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram called the Make 9 2021 Mal, and that is for you to join in the Make 9 challenge, where you choose 9 projects that you would like to make this year. I will have a full description of this make-along in the description box below if you're interested in learning more about that, but please feel free to continue to join in if you haven't yet. It's a year-long make-along. You're welcome to join at any time, and you're not required to finish anything, so you don't have to feel any pressure to try to get 9 things done this year or anything like that. It's just a participatory make-along, so please continue to join in. I, throughout the year, periodically give away prizes from those that have posted on Instagram using the Make 9 2021 Mal hashtag on their posts. And I have a few prizes to give away today. The first I announced as a giveaway 2 episodes ago, and I never heard from that winner, so I redrew a new winner for this beautiful sock set from Maker's Haven. It's especially unique because Amber of Maker's Haven no longer dyes yarn, so that makes it extra special. Both of these prizes were donated by Joy, one of the podcast viewers, so I got a huge box of wonderful goodies from her, and I've been periodically giving them away throughout the year. So thanks again to Joy for her generosity, because it has continued to be given off to all of you throughout the year. So anyway, this beautiful sock set is called Dobby's March Socks. It's on a 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon base, and you get 2 50-gram, no, is that right? Yeah, you get 2 50-gram skeins, which are these 2 colors, and you get 1 20-gram. And then it has this beautiful progress keeper on there as well. That's so pretty. So the lucky winner for this sock set is Rebecca, who is Rebecca_RB on Instagram. Congratulations, Rebecca. I'm so happy that you won a prize. If you can please get in contact with me and let me know your full name and mailing address, I would be happy to get this off in the mail to you as soon as possible. Another gorgeous skein of yarn for the second prize is from a homespun house. It is absolutely stunning, and this one is called Marvola Gaunt's Ring. It is also on a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon base, and it is a 100-gram skein, and it comes with a progress keeper as well. Which you probably won't be able to see too clearly, but it's a type of cupcake, and it has little lightning bolts up on the top of the frosting as like little sprinkles. Very cute. So that prize is going to Charmaine, who is knitting_under_the_yellow_wood. So knitting under the wood, all with underscores. Congratulations to you, Charmaine. I'm so excited that you won as well. Again, please get in contact with me with your full name and mailing address, and I will be happy to get this off in the mail to you as well. Again, thanks to everybody who's been participating in the make-along. I really enjoy seeing the projects that you all are working on. So thanks so much for joining in. All right, I have a few finished objects to share with you all today. The first of which is a pair of socks that I knit for my daughter. These are called the spiral socks, and it's a free pattern. I'll put the designer's name down below because I have a hard time pronouncing it. But I was able to work these up. Now I have these on my sock blockers. My daughter's feet are not nearly as big as mine, but this pattern is so stretchy that it fits my foot still, but it also fits her foot. The idea of this sock pattern is that you don't need to put in a heel. So that's why I was especially drawn to this pattern after seeing it on the Potter and Bloom podcast. Emma had made a pair of these socks for her daughter, with the idea that they would grow with her. And that's what I'm hoping will happen for my daughter as well, that she'll be able to wear these for quite a long time until they, hopefully they'll last her a really long time. The heel can be put in anywhere, it doesn't matter how long your foot grows to be. The yarn that I use, they're knit from the toe up, and I used US 0 2mm needles for these. I did start with a US 1 2.25mm needle for the toe, but switched to a US 0 about halfway through the toe. I had a bit of a process in making these. I had to rip them out a couple of times because I had issues with the first toe that I tried was called the star toe. Included with the pattern are 2 toe patterns, and the first one I tried was called the star toe. I didn't have success with that because the increases were making really large holes for me. So instead I used the flat toe, which worked out better. But then I had originally increased to the, I can't remember now how many stitches. I'm thinking, I really can't remember, but it was the A0 size, which is the smallest adult size. I had increased to that amount of stitches, but it was turning out way too large. So I ripped back until I only had 48 stitches per sock, which makes it really, really surprising that it fits onto my foot because I normally knit 64 stitches for my socks. But I guess it's just the nature of this pattern. It's just so incredibly stretchy. The 48 stitches works for me. I'm shocked by that. But anyway, the yarn I was telling you for the toe is my own hand-dyed yarn on a fingering weight base, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And when I dyed yarn, I called this color Gaze. And then the remainder of the sock is knit using Knit Picks Felici and the Goth Kitty colorway. And that also is a 75-25 fingering weight base. So I really like how these turned out. I'll take them off the blocker so you can see how funny they are. This is what it looks like off of the blocker. Isn't that funny? But you can see it just pops right back to its spiral pattern. They're actually knit in like mirroring each other. One of them spirals to the right and one of them spirals to the left. So I'm not really sure which one goes on which foot or if it really matters, but I just did what the pattern told me to. So it probably fits on one foot better than the other, but I'm not sure which is which. I haven't paid much attention. Anyway, I don't think I followed the pattern for the cuff. I really have no idea. I didn't even look at the pattern for the cuff, but I just knit until it was a really long length. Then I did a 1x1 rib for, well, just 2 color stripes. I'm not sure how many rows that was, but about 20 probably. For the bind off, I used the Stretchy Bind Off by Very Pink Knits. So I will link to that in the description box below if you're interested. It does give it a bit of a flare when it's off of the blocker, but you saw it as it was on the blocker that you really can't tell once it's being worn that it has any kind of a flare. But it just gives it a nice stretchy bind off. So there's my first finished object. I'm so happy I was able to get these done for my daughter. She specifically asked for some more socks because she has outgrown all of the other hand knit socks that I have made for her. So she was due for a new pair, and hopefully those will last a lot longer than her other socks I have made for her. I have 2 more finished objects, and these are some Scrappy Hats. I was working on this one last time I recorded an episode, and I also made this one. I was using up the very last bits of my DK weight acrylic yarn. So I had lots of little scraps of yarn that I had left over from various projects. And I'm really happy with how these turned out. They're so much fun to make Scrappy Hats because, you just Well, on this one, you can kind of see I was kind of careful on what colors. It was basically, once I got to this green stripe, I looked into my scraps and I figured that I could repeat the color pattern that I had already started pretty much. So that's what I did for this one. I kind of was more selective on what colors I chose for this hat. But then for this hat, it is just completely random. I just grabbed into my scrap basket and pulled out the next little bit of yarn that I had in there. So I think it turned out really cute. I didn't use a pattern for these hats, but I cast on 88 stitches using a US 3.25 millimeter needle. I did 1 by 1 ribbing for about 2 inches, but I really didn't measure. It was just whenever I ran out of that white yarn that I switched to stockinette. Then I just knit straight in stockinette. Oh, and I switched up to a US 3.75 millimeter for the body of the hat. I used the Russian join method whenever I needed to change yarns. And then just knit in stockinette until it measured 7 inches. I did the decreases for these hats a little bit differently from each other. Once I got to 7 inches on this first one, I decreased every 11 stitches. But I felt like it needed to decrease a little bit more rapidly. So on this one, I decreased every 8 stitches. And on both of them, I just decreased until I had 40 stitches left on the needles, and then decreased every row until I was down to, like a very little, like 8 to, I think this one was 11 stitches when I was all done. But anyway, they both fit me really well. So I think my head circumference is 21 inches. And it's a nice, comfortable fit. So I'm really happy with how those turned out. I'm not sure who these will be going to, but I will probably donate them or something like that, because they'll just be, they're 100% acrylic, so they'll wash up super easily. And it's so nice to be able to use up the tiniest bits of yarn and get those out of my stash. So I had still just tiny little nuggets of my DK weight scraps that I gave to my kids, and they love using little bits of yarn for things. So tying up, tractors to wagons that have lost their hitches, or making a leash for one of their pet stuffy things. Anyway, lots of various uses for yarn. Okay. On to my works in progress. I again have a lot of works in progress. I have 6 different projects to share with you today. The first of which is in this, again, very wrinkly. I never took time to iron this. I think I mentioned that last time. I washed this project bag and never ironed it, so it's pretty wrinkly. But anyway, I made this bag, and in it is some Christmassy socks, which I am really enjoying working on these so much. I love them. Here is a beautiful Christmassy progress keeper from Little Bitty Delights. It's a little cup of hot cocoa with some whipped cream and a mint and little red sprinkles on it. It's so detailed and adorable. That's where I was last time I recorded an episode. I am not following a pattern for these either. I cast on 64 stitches, did a 1 by 1 ribbing for 20 rows, and then went into a 3 by 1 broken rib. So I did 3 by 1 ribbing for 1 row and then knit the next row. So that's the pattern, which I was inspired to do this patterning from Kay of the Bakery Bears podcast. She was working, or probably still is working, on a pair of socks for Dan using this same broken rib 3 by 1 type of pattern, and so I just really thought they looked nice and wanted to copy that. I really love how the heel turned out for these. The yarn that I'm using is some gorgeous yarn that I received in a swap from Anna of Anna Knitter, of the Anna Knitter podcast. It is a German yarn called Wollboot Christmas Wonderland. This colorway is 6643, and it is a 73% wool, 24% polyamide, and 3% polyester yarn, fingering weight. And she sent me 3 balls of this yarn. It comes in like a 3-pack. And in one of the other pairs of socks that I made, it had a little bit wider color stripes. And so I was able to use some leftovers that I had from that yarn to make the heels on these socks the solid red color, and it matches the little red stripes in this yarn perfectly. So I have finished the heel flap and the gusset decreases, and I am just happily knitting away on the feet of these socks. I am again using US 0.2mm needles for these socks. I'm really loving the gauge that I'm getting with the smaller needles. So I'm enjoying these so much. The broken rib is definitely easy enough that it doesn't take a lot of mind power. So these are really easy to work on anywhere. I love them. They're so pretty. I think this yarn is just so gorgeous. I feel so privileged to have this yarn in my possession because it's not easy to come by. I believe you can only get it in Germany or maybe a few other European countries. So anyway, I'm so happy to have those on the go. My next work in progress is my cross stitch project, which is again in a me-made bag. And this, I will put in a picture of where I was last time I showed off this project. And here it is now. I haven't made a ton of progress on this project since I last recorded, but I have tried to work on it pretty consistently. I have not worked on it every day, but I have tried to work on it as often as possible, I guess. And I can now really, see the finish line. I really only have a little bit in this section and then down along this corner left of the half cross stitches. And then I need to do the back stitching over the top. This is a pattern called Be a Light by Dimensions, and I got it as a kit at Walmart. You can also get it through Amazon. I will link to that in the description box as well if you're interested in this kit. But it comes with everything that you need. It comes with the Aida cloth, which is a 14 count Aida fabric. It comes with a needle and all of the thread that you need. Here is a picture of what it should look like in the end. So you can see I'm pretty close. There's not a ton left to do. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm definitely getting there, aren't I? I should be able to finish this pretty quickly, I would think. Maybe. We'll see. I mentioned last time that I was kind of losing steam on this project, but in the last few days that I've worked on it, I've enjoyed it some more. Probably because I can just see the finish line, and so I'm more motivated to work on it. I really love how these leaves show up in the negative space. I think that's so cool in the branches and everything. I think that's a really awesome feature to this design. And the glass jars really do look pretty realistic, don't they? With the light reflecting there. It's pretty cool. I'm happy with how it's coming out. So that is that. The next 4 works in progress are all new cast on. So I've cast on quite a few things. The next one is in another me-made project bag. And I had a little bit of the Goth Kitty Felici yarn left over from my daughter's socks. I thought I would use some of it to make myself a pair of socks because I do love the colors in that colorway. So I decided to pair it with this gorgeous yarn. I'm so pleased with this yarn. It's another Knit Picks yarn. It is Knit Picks Stroll fingering weight in the Raven Tonal colorway. So it's the same base as the Felici, 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. But it's just this gorgeous purple tonal yarn. It's just gorgeous. I love the different shades that it has in it. So it's so pretty. So I cast on 64 stitches using, again, US 0 2mm needles. All of the needles that I use are Chowgu red lace, by the way. And I did a 2x2 ribbing, so knit 2, purl 2 for 20 rows. And then I switched into the Knit Picks Felici and just worked stockinette through the 6 colors of that stripe. The Felici yarn has 6 different color stripes in it. So I used all 6 of those and then just switched back to the Raven Tonal colorway. So, and I'm just working plain stockinette for these. So I really love how those are turning out, and I'll do the rest of the sock just in the Raven Tonal colorway. I think those are gonna look really cool. I was kind of inspired by the Regia Perfect yarn that I've seen other people knit socks with, and it kind of has the same idea where there's a striping pattern up at the top of them a lot of times, and then the rest of the sock is knit in a solid color. So I was kind of inspired by that, I guess. But they're really, really obviously very easy to work on, and I'm loving working with these as well. So that's those. My next work in progress is a really fun project that I'm super excited about, and I've put it into my autumnal bag. Oh, this is another me-made bag. I have one other bag that I'm using, and it's not one that I made, but again, I'm using a lot of my own bags, but that's okay, I guess, right? Anyway, this is a really fun autumnal bag. I'm definitely ready for autumn to come anytime now. I am not a huge fan of summer in general. I don't love the heat. So anyway, I thought I would use this bag now because the colors in this project kind of go along with it a little bit. So this is a shawl that I am knitting for my dear friend Tina. I probably haven't talked about Tina in a while, but if you're a longtime viewer, you have heard me speak of Tina a lot. And she had several skeins of yarn that she had acquired from me from when I was dyeing yarn, whether they were gifts or she purchased them from me. She had several skeins of yarn. Most of them were sock yarn, and I knit her socks out of all of those yarns because she gave them back to me so that I could knit things for her using those yarns. I knit all of her other skeins that she gave to me into socks, but I still had this one skein left, and it is on a 70% superwash merino wool, 30% silk singles base. So it's definitely not meant to be knit into socks. It would not wear well as socks. So we were discussing what I could make for her using this yarn, you know, what this yarn would be good for. And really this yarn is really perfect for shawls. So I've decided to knit her a shawl using this yarn, but she likes big shawls, which I do too. I completely agree with her on that point. So I needed to get some other yarn to pair with this. And I had more of this base from when I dyed yarn. By the way, if any of you that are watching shopped my Etsy update where I sold some of probably my very last skeins of hand-dyed yarn, thank you so much. That was so encouraging for you all to shop that update, and I'm so glad that those yarns are out in the world and being able to be used instead of I had just gone through my stash of undyed yarn and dyed up that which I wanted to get rid of. And anyway, it's just great to have that out of my stash and into your hands, and I can't wait to see the things that you all might make with those yarns. So anyway, I did have more of this base, so I dyed up some more skeins to go with it, and I decided to knit the Vertices Unite shawl by Stephen West. So the other colors that I dyed up are this colorway I called Iron. And Tina actually has a hat that I knit in this colorway as well, so I know she likes this colorway. And then, so I had these two, and I needed to get some more to go with it. I decided to just use a bare yarn as well. So this one I did not dye at all, it's just the bare yarn. And then when I was dyeing up the skeins that I was doing for the Etsy update, I dyed up this colorway, which I called Upright. So it's a really light gray base, and then it's speckled with this burnt orange type of color, which goes along with this colorway, and it has some dark charcoal specks in there as well. So I thought that went really well together. And then I decided to over dye. When I dyed this color, I did 3 skeins of this colorway. I grabbed one of the other skeins that matched this and I over dyed it with some kind of a tan color. It's kind of a hard color to describe. It's not really tan. It's more of like a light browny tan. I don't know. It's just a really cool, rich color. I love how this turned out. And now I had already speckled this yarn, and I thought that when I put it in a pot and over dyed it that the speckles would fade, but they did not. The speckles are still there. So it's got the same colored speckles as this one. It's just a deeper, really cool, rich tone, I think. So those are the 5 colors that I'm going to be using for this project. And I think they're going to look so cool together. So I have just started on the first section using these 2 colors. I'm striping them together. I'm a bit tangled up here. Okay. So the first section is super easy. I think the whole shawl is in garter stitch. And if you're not familiar with this shawl, though a lot of you probably are because it's pretty popular and it's not a new pattern by any means. It is knit in sections and it's very geometrical, and you kind of knit one section at a time, and then I think you add on to this section when you're knitting the second section. And anyway, it's kind of a neat construction, as Stephen West patterns typically are. You can just see it has this easy striping pattern right now, and you just increase every 4th row on this side here. I am using the recommended needle size, which are US 4 3.5 millimeter needles. This is just really mindless at this point and fun to work on as well. But I am also really excited to get to the other colors as well and see how all 5 of them look knit up together. But I am just praying for Tina as I knit on this, and I just love doing that when I know that who a gift is going to. I just love praying for that person while I work on it. It just makes the project even that more special. So I'm really enjoying this one. My next work in progress is in this beautiful bag from Tanny Casey, and it has on here a beautiful pin, which is a row counter, and that is from Twill and Print. I'm not using it right now on this project, but a lot of times it comes in handy. This project is a project off of my personal Make 9 2021 list. I only have 2 projects left off of that list. This is a cardigan, and then I have a pair of colorwork mittens that I want to make as well. So this is called Elly, and it is a beautiful design by Adelheid. This is my swatch that I worked up. I did not get gauge with this swatch, but I really love the fabric. Oddly enough, my gauge is too tight. I normally knit super loosely and have a hard time going down in needle size enough to meet gauge. But the gauge for this project, I believe, is 23 stitches to 4 inches. And I have 27 stitches to 4 inches. But I did not want to go up in needle size because I don't want my gauge to be any looser than this. The tighter the gauge, I believe, the more durable the garment will be. And I just really I don't want it any looser than that. I love how that looks. I also did a bit of the lace patterning in this swatch because I want to add beads to this project, which are not included in the original pattern. So I was playing around with the bead placement They're maybe hard to see because they match the yarn. They're just a pearl colored bead. And so I was playing around with where I wanted to place them in the pattern. It will actually go this way on the cardigan. I originally, well, you'll see in what I've knit up so far that I have originally started putting the beads here where this bead is placed because I really like how that looks in this swatch. But on the actual garment, those are getting hidden a little bit. And so I am going to be redoing that, and I'm going to be placing them where this bead is instead because I think they'll show up a little bit better. So I started the project. Since my gauge was a lot tighter than the original gauge, I decided to go up one size from where I should have. I did some math, and from what I could figure, I thought that that would be right. So I worked, it starts at the neck and is worked top down. And it has some short row shaping in the back. And I got through that short row shaping section, which takes a lot of mind power, to be honest, because you're having to do a lot of different things at once. You're having to start the lace in the middle of the short rows because the lace goes on the front of both panels in the front, and it's on the sleeves. The back is plain stockinette, but you have to include the lace, and of course I was including beads as well, and the short rows. It's just a lot to keep track of, and I had gotten through the short rows. And well, when I had first done the ribbing, I thought that it was a bit wide in the neck. But I thought, well, I'll just keep going and we'll see how this works out. But once I got through the short row shaping and, I wasn't in the middle of a row anymore, because when you're doing the short rows, you're always in the middle of a row, and I tried it on. It's not too terrible, but I really don't want it to be this wide around my neck. I want it to sit much closer. I want it to sit like this. So that's a lot of extra stitches there. I counted the extra stitches that I have from where I want it to fit and where my stitches are, how many extra stitches I have. And according to my calculations, I should knit the smallest size in the pattern. So this one, I am knitting the extra large size, and I'm actually going to go down to the smallest size, which seems strange since my gauge is so tight, but that's what I'm going to try to do. This pattern is it does not have a ton of sizes. It only goes from a 32-inch bust circumference to a 47.2-inch bust circumference. So it doesn't have a huge range, but anyway, I think I'm just kind of gonna do my own thing. I do that a lot, don't I? Anyway, I'm gonna cast on the smallest size, and I'm gonna make a few modifications. I'm going to knit the ribbing just a little bit taller, because I don't think that it's laying very, I don't know, it kind of curls. The ribbing kind of curls over sometimes. I mean, it has been blocked, so blocking would kind of help it. But I think I'm just going to go maybe a couple more rows on the ribbing. Included with the pattern are the button bands. You just knit them as you go. I don't think I have decided whether I'm going to do that or not. I might not, or I don't know, I can't decide. But the one thing I'm definitely going to change is the buttonhole. The buttonhole is pretty large. I mean, my thumb can fit in there. And for this sweater, it's pretty delicate looking. All these lacy, beady things. I think the pattern is a little bit too delicate looking for a large button to be put on it. So I'm going to do a smaller buttonhole for sure. And then I'm just going to follow the small size, and then just so that I can have a tighter neck. I'm sure I'm going to need to increase more than what the small size calls for before I split for the sleeves. But I'm just going to continue following the raglan increases for this pattern and I'll just keep trying it on until it fits me, and hopefully it'll work out. I wanted to show you how the beading is showing up on this, which is really hard to see, isn't it? Okay. So you can, maybe you can't see, but there's a bead right here at the top of that. And maybe, I don't know if you can tell or not, but I just felt like the beads were getting lost in the lace work. You can't even see it on camera. But anyway, in person, it's a little more clear. And I just want to move those down like I showed you on the swatch. So I'm going to be changing that as well. I'm going to keep with the same needles, which are, it's not on the needle right there now because I put it on a longer cord so I could try it on more easily. But I am using a US 3.25 millimeter needle for the knit stitches. And then, as I've mentioned in other episodes, I need to go down a needle size for my purl stitches so that I can match gauge. And I went to a US 2.53 millimeter for the purl stitches. For the ribbing, I used a 2.75 millimeter needle. But I'm really, really happy with how my gauge, I feel like it's pretty even for this pattern. So I'm super happy with that because I think it's a lot better than it has been recently. I think the fact that I'm working with wool really makes a difference, which, by the way, I didn't mention. This is a bare wool again, and it is on a fingering weight, non-superwash, 100% merino wool base. So I have knit with this base, making sweaters with this base before, and I really love how it works up. The ribbing is twisted ribbing, by the way. So I love twisted ribbing. It looks really pretty. So this is going to get ripped out and started over, but I haven't done that quite yet. It is really getting dark. We're supposed to be getting storms this afternoon, so sorry about that. Okay, I'm almost done though. I only have one more work in progress to share with you all. I was just itching to do some more crochet. I didn't have any crochet on the go, and I had quite a few skeins of yarn left over from the stacked triangles baby blanket that I showed off on my last episode. And I had a lot of that yarn left over, which is Knit Picks Brava worsted. And I loved working with that yarn for the stacked triangles blanket, but I had a ton left over because I ended up making that baby blanket a lot smaller than I had originally intended. And so I have a ton of that yarn left over, and I have a few other skeins that I am incorporating. I have some of this Loops and Threads Impeccable yarn that I used to make up that shawl for my stepmom that I showed on my last episode as well. And I have a lot of this Brava worsted in the Mulberry colorway. And then the other colors are the ones I used in the stacked triangles blanket, which are these 4 colors. So we have Avocado, Clarity, Tidepool, and Cobblestone Heather. And these are all the Brava. Oh, I also have this Baby Bee yarn, which is from Hobby Lobby. Soft and Sleek Baby, and it's in the, Sea Foam Marled colorway. And as you can see, I got that on clearance for only, it's upside down, 99 cents for this skein. And I have 2 of these. And then also from Tina again, she had given me this yarn a long time ago. It's called Plymouth Yarn Jelly Beans. And this is the only one that is not 100% acrylic. This has 25% wool in it as well. But they're all worsted weight. I love this one. It's got marled, it's this light purple color, and then it's got light blue, pink, and white mixed in with it. So that one's really pretty. And I got a new book that I ordered through Knit Picks as well. It's called Crochet Kaleidoscope by Sandra Ng, and it has 100 different crocheted motifs in here, as well as a few patterns where you put the, well, here's a pillow that you could make with one of the motifs, and it's got a few other beautiful patterns in it where you put the motifs together to make a different pattern. Here's a gorgeous blanket. So I just thought this book was so fun. There's another cool pillow. And so I went through this book, and there's circular motifs. I'll try to show off a few without showing off the pattern too much. There's several circular motifs, several square ones. Oh, here's a whole picture that shows all of the squares. Wonder if there's one of those for the circles. Probably there is. Yes. Aren't those gorgeous? Wouldn't it be fun to have a kitchen drawer full of those as pot holders? Okay, and then there's a whole section on hexagons, which I absolutely love. Let's see if I can find that. So pretty. And then there's another section that is kind of like triangles and other shapes, it says. So this is just so inspiring to me. So I went through the squares section, and I found several of the squares were around 5 inches as a finished object. And I thought it would be super fun to try to work up a bunch of those squares using this yarn that I have. And I'm using several different squares. Most of them are, well, a lot of them are supposed to end at 5 inches square. I'm using quite a few patterns that are less than that, and I'm just going to add a few extra rounds as needed to get them to be the same size as the other ones. But this original book calls for DK weight yarn and a smaller hook. And I'm using worsted weight yarn and a larger hook. I'm using an H 5mm hook, which is a clover hook. And my squares are turning out to be 6 inches square, but that is no problem. I'm planning that so my plan is to make, I have 14 different patterns that I've picked out from the book, and I'm planning to make a baby blanket that would be probably 4 by 5 squares, I'm guessing. So a couple of the patterns I'll use more than once, and I'll just kind of rearrange the colors. But anyway, here's the first square that I made. I absolutely love how it turned out. I think it's so cool. Super fun. I just really love working up little squares and trying new stitch patterns and seeing how they turn out. And here is the second one. And I'm just planning on making all of these squares and then probably stitching them together in the end. I prefer to crochet as I go and join as I go when I'm making, you know, motif blankets. But for this one, I don't know how I'm going to want to place the different squares, and I'm going to want to be particular about how I lay them out. I probably could go back in and add another row of the border color to join them if I choose to do that, but I just haven't decided yet how I'm going to join them. But I might just stitch them together, which is perfectly fine. I love how this one turned out as well. I'm trying not to choose any of the patterns that are super lacy. This is probably as lacy as I'll go because, you know, for a baby blanket, I want it to be as solid as possible. And then I've only made one other one. I made this one just this morning. I love this one. It's so cool. It has these chains, and then you work behind that. So fun. Even the backside, even the backside of a lot of these is neat. This one's kind of cool on the backside as well. So I've just really enjoyed working these up. I'm planning on bordering all of them with the purple because I have the most of this mulberry colorway in the Brava. So I'm planning on that being the border color for all of these, and then I'll do a border around the whole blanket in that color as well. So that's been super fun to work on. So that is all I have to share with you today. I hope you all have enjoyed watching. Thank you so much again for joining me today. I hope you all are doing well. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I would appreciate that so much. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.